Welcome back, everyone, to Prime 3 Radio, your podcast for sports and sports culture. I'm your host, Rob Munez. And if you were able to watch my first episode, first of all, thank you. As we all know, the NFL draft just got done. When I made that first episode, it was actually the day before the draft. And I gave you my top 6 quarterbacks. So today I just wanted to do a quick review on that, just an update on where everyone landed, give you a little quick rundown of my opinion on each guy there. And then what I would like to do is actually move into the draft picks made by the Las Vegas Raiders. That is my football team, the Las Vegas Silver and Black. So really excited to get my hands dirty with some film and get down to the details here to see what we're going to be looking at in training camp coming up. So without further ado, let's get this going. We'll start with my quarterback. Number 1 on my list, I had Zach Wilson. He went as the number 2 pick in round 1 to the Jets. This guy's confidence and his athletic ability just really fired me up. I went through all the things I liked about his demeanor and just his ability that I feel he can put the team on his back. Very difficult place to play for anyone in New York, especially for the Jets. I mean, it seems pretty invasive, especially for a young quarterback like Zach Wilson. So looking forward to seeing some of the development there from him. And overall, I mean, I hope to go into this a little bit more later on, but the Jets didn't have that bad of a draft, in my opinion. They got some protection. They got their guy. They got Zach Wilson, but they got him some protection. They got him a couple weapons. So looking forward to diving back into that a little bit later. Moving on, number 2 quarterback on my list, I had Trevor Lawrence. And of course, he went number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, great pick up there by the Jaguars. I think this kid is going to come in and make some changes right away. I also think Urban Meyer is on a mission there with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'd be excited to see what happens here. I know they got Travis Etienne, so that was pretty cool. He gets to play with Lawrence and make that transition. So hopefully that makes it a little bit better for the both of them, but we'll see what Jacksonville has in store coming up. Now, number 3, I had Mac Jones, who I labeled as my favorite quarterback of this draft. I think this guy's has the most maturity, and I listed everything that I loved about him beforehand, all the play fakes. I think he's the best at the play action and looking off the safety. I mean, I can't watch that enough. I actually think he fell to the best situation for himself and landing it with the New England Patriots. So I know Josh McDaniels has a very extensive playbook there. It's notoriously explained by veterans as difficult to learn. It definitely takes a lot of time. Mac Jones is pretty sharp when it comes to learning playbooks, just according to all the analysis. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with a little bit of time. I mean, according to Bill Belichick, who of course never releases too much, Cam is their guy, and I'm pumped about that. And I'm actually hoping to do an episode regarding Cam Newton, coming up. A big fan of his, and I'm excited to see him come back this year and see what he can do. Also great leader for Mac Jones to sit behind as he absorbs the playbook, as he gets the feel for the New England system. So I actually think that of the 6 quarterbacks, he fell in the best situation for him. So my number 4 quarterback, I had Justin Fields. He went to the Bears, who traded up to pick number 11 in the first round, and they grabbed him. So obviously they were very excited. He was still hanging around. A lot of people didn't have him going outside of the top 8. And there he was. Chicago Bears made a business decision and went up and grabbed their guy. So a great pickup for them. They're getting a big, strong athlete in Justin Fields. And I'm just hoping that they have enough coaching and enough protection for him to allow him to develop and let his ability show through. I know Chicago is a tough place for quarterbacks, especially if you're just starting your career. So I can't really say one way or another if this is a good or a bad pick, but I guess that's the fun of the draft. We will see. My number 5 quarterback, I had Kellen Mond. He dropped all the way down to round 3, the number 66 pick. The Minnesota Vikings picked him up. So he'll have a chance to sit behind Kirk Cousins there. I know there's been some question behind Cousins' consistency. I'm not sure what that looks like for him going forward, but I assume he will still be the guy for the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that's a great situation for Kellen Mond. I know they have a great staff there. They have elite receivers, and I'm hoping that he will get enough reps to allow his potential to break through. I'm looking forward to seeing the development of Kellen Mond. He was a real big surprise for me. He was originally my number 6 QB, but just based on his experience, based on his ability to go through his progressions and read through a defense, I think he has a good upside if he can loosen up a little bit. So very technical, but if he can add a little bit of that, a little bit of that swag to his game, I think he might be decent. So let's see what we got here. My number 6 quarterback, I had Trey Lance. This was the big surprise for me. I think for a lot of people in the draft, the Niners, who had traded a while back to get up to that number 3 spot. I know some people had Fields. A lot of people had Mac Jones. Towards the end there, as the draft got closer, I did hear more discussion about Trey Lance. And that's the guy that they went with. I know Niner fans seem super excited. The few that I talked to, I mean, they're convinced this is their guy, and I hope so. I mean, great talent. I mean, he has a big arm, as we all saw. He has good feet. He can run, not afraid of contact. And I think he fell to a great staff. I mean, Shanahan, can't really go wrong there, especially if you're a young quarterback, limited experience. I think he fell into a good situation to become an NFL quarterback to show his potential. Shanahan and Lynch seem really big on him, so excited to see the development there. Let's see what happens. When I watch him play, I still see a little bit of I can't help but think of Colin Kaepernick. When I watch him play, I kind of think of Kaepernick with a bigger arm. And as we know, Kaepernick did have to do a little bit of development himself before he was ready. But once he became the starter, I think we saw what he could do. Took the team to a Super Bowl. And speaking of which, Garoppolo did the same thing. Sounds like Garoppolo's still going to be their guy for now. How long that's going to last, I'm not sure. But I think the longer he stays on the Niners roster, the better it is for Lance. I know everyone's excited to see him get on the field now and display his abilities. I always love watching a good young athlete go and, show out for his team. But I think moving into this league, it's a little different speed. And so the more help a player can get with the transition, I just think it's better for everyone. And there's one more quarterback I did not note, Kyle Trask. He was not on my list as a ranked quarterback. I didn't watch too much of him. The short amount of film I watched, he seemed to need a little bit of development with his accuracy and ball placement there. I feel like he hung out some of his receivers a little bit. So we'll see. He got grabbed in round 2, pick 64 by the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I mean, he's gonna be able to sit there behind Tom. Hopefully, is able to make it through training camp and be able to absorb. As we know, the Bucks didn't need really many pieces anyway with everyone coming back. So that was just a little quick recap of the draft class for the 2021 QBs. My opinions on each of them has not really changed. I mean, rightfully so. I still feel the way I feel about each of them. I mean, all good athletes, all have the potential to get better, and now all of them are professional quarterbacks. So let's go. I'm ready to see where this takes everyone. And as always, if you have any questions, any comments that you want to throw at me, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and click the link below or leave a comment. Everyone's input is welcome. Let's just try to keep it on the positive side here. But it's all about perspective here. We don't know how any of this is going to end up. So that's just part of the moving fun. Along here. As I mentioned before, I'm a Las Vegas Raiders fan. What I'm going to do now is break down each of the picks that they made for this 2021 draft. Man, I got to watch a ton of game film just leading up to this draft on a ton of different players. And it's real easy to get overwhelmed because you might be watching one guy and then another guy catches your interest. So you want to go down that rabbit hole. And then, the list goes on from there. So was really excited now to look at some game film post-draft, especially for my team, the Raiders, and kind of have a list of more specific players that I can look forward to watching in this upcoming camp. So let's kick that off. All right, so let's get into the Raiders picks. First off, I wanted to note interesting little input here is the each of the Raiders 7 picks that they made this year, they all played last year. They all played a certain amount of games last year. I know some teams had limited games, but just wanted to mention that none of these picks were opt-outs for the 2021 season. So they're all coming right off of play and hopefully ready to go for training camp. Into it. So let's round one, number 17. Pick, the Raiders went with offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood out of Bama, 6'6", 316 pounds. This guy is a tank. This guy is huge. He's big. He's strong. I mean, he's like a big oak out there, you know. Suggestion for defensive guys: do not run straight at this guy. This guy is a monster. His strength is pretty freakish, and he's pretty dominant inside inside a radius of about 3 to 4 yards. I want to say I probably up that, or let me see. So this guy is a wall. He has long arms, so he's able to engage in contact, and he has great techniques as far as getting himself in the position for a down block. One thing a couple things I want to say that I'd like to see him work on, just based on the game film here. He seems to play kind of tall at times, so there was a couple times that I saw him get caught out of position, just standing up. With that being said, needs a little bit of work when he's reaching into the second level. I mean, he's big and he's athletic enough to get there. But I noticed a few times some of the craftier edge rushers were able to make a move on him and kind of leave him out of position there. So I'd like to see him improve there. And I'd like to see his motor running a little bit more consistently. So I will say I did not know much about this guy going into this year's draft. I know Alabama's line was the top in the nation, I think, in 2020. So great accolade to have there behind his name. But I wonder if this guy might have slipped to the second round. So I will say I was caught off guard. I personally wanted Micah Parsons at number 17. Of course, the Cowboys snagged him. It was kind of a toss-up to see where we were going to go. I thought we might target another linebacker, maybe the kid from Notre Dame, but went with the tackle from Bama, and obviously addressing some needs there with our sort of newly formed offensive line here coming up. So I won't say it's a bad pick. Will he pan out? I hope so. And I mean, it was brought to my attention, picking an offensive lineman is not always the sexiest, but we need to protect our quarterback. And if this kid can do that for us, then moving on to round 2, number 43, the pick from the 49ers. The Raiders traded up and drafted Trevon Moehrig from TCU. So Trevon Moehrig is 6'2", 202 pounds, and he was my number 1 safety that I had listed for this draft, and also one of my favorite players, one of my top 3 favorite players, actually. This kid he looks like a natural football player to me. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Again, favorite safety in the draft. He has good awareness of the ball and great closing speed. He makes good contact, so good tackler, and he's also able to shed blocks. He doesn't often over pursue on his big hits, but he can lay that hat. He has the ability to get sideline to sideline, and he's a good open field tackler. So I'm wondering what kind of blitz packages might be in place for him. I know he's athletic enough to kind of wander, but I also know to play a position like that, where you're a free safety kind of with a little bit more range on the field, it comes with a lot of experience. So he's going to need a lot of reps maybe before he moves into a position like that. I might be jumping the gun, but I love him at free safety. I would really love to see where this goes. I know he was an elite special teams player before he took over the spot at TCU. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So a couple things that I caught is he sometimes gets caught first step forward as a defensive back. We always know that the first step back is the way to go, and then kind of react forward from there, which is normally what he does. But there was just, a couple times that he did get caught first step forward. It didn't seem to torch him at all too much, but he did have to do a little bit of recovery. And I'd just like to see his slot coverage improve. I mean, this could probably go for all safeties, all defensive backs. But as you go into the league, as we all know, I mean, think of the Kansas City Chiefs with all these fast receivers we have. it's going to be a pretty difficult transition. So I'd really like to see him just improve overall. There was nothing super drastic, but when there's faster guys running at you, it's going to take some development there. With that being said, going back to the first step forward, he can over pursue at times. It didn't happen a whole lot. But his aggressiveness it can be a good and a bad thing. You know, I definitely think he has a better ability to cover than Carl Joseph or Abram, but we'll get it going. Those guys are going to be a big part too in the development that comes through training camp. So, all right, moving along here, round 3, pick 79 from Arizona. The Raiders select defensive end Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo University. Kuntz is 6'2", 249 pounds. He made the first team All MAC, and he has 17 career sacks and 22 and a half tackles for a loss there in his career at Buffalo. So, edge rusher out of Buffalo. The first thing, of course, I heard from multiple fans and analysts was, man, is this guy the next Khalil Mack? Obviously, that's where Khalil went. I personally am still a little bit bitter that the Raiders had got rid of him. He's definitely one of my favorite players in this league. I could watch his game film all day. But with that being said, Malcolm Kuntz is not Khalil Mack. The only similarity that I saw there, other than the same school, was Kuntz actually possesses a lot of moves in his tool bag. So he came at tackles with, spin moves, rip moves. He defends against the cut block very well. He bull rushes too at times. So big, strong, athletic guy. He has really active hands, and he has long arms. So I put him here as a backfield disruptor. When he gets into the backfield, he lets that wingspan extend, and it makes it incredibly hard for a quarterback to throw the ball accurate, especially if he's being hurried. So liked what I saw there. He has great lateral movement, quick feet. He lines up in a 2-point stance and a 3-point. And at times he also drew some double teams. Hadn't heard much about him before the draft. So this was my first time breaking down his film. I'm excited for the potential that I see here. But again, one thing I'd like him, or a couple things I'd like him to work on, is playing low. So he stands up kind of tall at times, and it's easy to get pad level for the linemen and stuff if you're standing up coming off the edge. And I'd like to see a little bit more consistency. Now, I know there was a couple analysts that knocked him for maybe not hustling or like taking a play off. I haven't watched enough to make that judgment about him, but I know that he was a little bit streaky. I'd like to see him add a little bit more consistency to his game. Is he ready to start now? I'm not sure. It's going to be pretty hard to get through that training camp, but we'll see. You never know what can happen. I'd like to see him develop his pass coverage skill set. So I think he had a couple pass deflections in his career, but I'm willing to bet that was not due to coverage. It could have been deflections, coming off the line there on a low throw. So again, not 100% on that, but I could see him, playing at that outside spot in a 3-4 defense. So we'll see what he has coming. We're staying in the third round. Consecutive pick here went with number 80, safety Divine Diablo out of Virginia Tech. I know this guy was high on a lot of people's boards, 6'3", 226 pounds, led the SEC with 4 interceptions, and that was number 7 in the nation. So this kid has great size. He's a thumper. And with that, I mean, he doesn't necessarily always fall back when he hits. He's usually the one delivering the hit. So no problem there with the contact. Definitely has a big, strong safety frame. So I know there are a lot of question marks when a lot of people saw another safety pop up on the board for the Raiders. I feel like the Raiders always take defensive backs no matter what. But after watching the film on this kid, it was obvious to me that he's not going to play free. He's probably going to play more of that will backer. I think he can cover tight ends. He actually started his college career as a wide receiver and then made the transition there to defense. So, I mean, good on him if you're athletic enough to do that at Virginia Tech. Hats off to you. So going back to playing free safety, he did play closer to the line. I could see him as a nickel linebacker, possibly special teams. I know he contributed a lot to special teams there at Virginia Tech. So I think a good special teams is great thing to have on on any team. So he's a good tackler. I'd like to see him work on his closing speed. Okay. And with that, I just noticed a couple of rough transitions, reacting to breaks, reacting to receivers that maybe had, or tight ends that maybe had more than one move. Um, so it's one thing to get caught off guard, to get caught out of position, but that recovery speed can make up for so much of the lost steps there. And I'd like to see him work on coming out of his breaks a little. Moving on to number 4, pick 143, safety Tyree Gillespie out of Missouri. 5'11", 207 pounds. He was a 3-year starter, and he started a total of 34 games there at Mizzou. So this kid, again, this kid is another thumper. When he hits people, they fall backwards. He is most recently famous for the hit against Najee Harris versus Alabama on the goal line. With that being said, with the great closing speed, I think he also lacks the top end speed. So once he gets those hips turned out and he has to run with the tight end, he has to run with the receiver. I'd like to see him be able to hit another gear and be able to hang with some of those guys downfield. Not an easy thing to do, but I think for him to be a little bit more well-rounded, he can work on that. So we'll see what we have with that. He does have the tendency to over pursue at times, but that just comes with being an aggressive hitter. Not necessarily a bad thing if you can learn to make that transition to the NFL and still play with some sense of balance there. So moving on here, number 5, pick 167, cornerback Nate Hobbs out of Illinois University. Nate Hobbs is 6 foot, 196 pounds, and he's a 4-year starter. So he started a total of 35 games, which included 3 interceptions and 12 and a half sacks, 12 and a half tackles for loss and 11 pass deflections. I may have seen a couple highlights of his in the past, but he wasn't somebody that necessarily stood out for me as far as a potential pick for the Raiders. But man, based on the limited film that I have seen, he looks impressive. He ran a 4.39 in his pro day. He has ability to shed blocks, and he's a big physical player. So he also has really good closing speed. And I know there's been some adversities he's had to deal with as a young man in his life. So plays with a chip on his shoulder, and I know he's a grinder. I know he's going to work. I know he's going to turn up the competition here for training camp. So really hoping this guy finds a place. And man, I just really like his demeanor. I like the way he carries himself. He doesn't back down. And yeah, the only knock that I've really heard or read about him is consistency issues. That's what it was labeled. And the number one stat that was put alongside that was the 3 interceptions. I could see where they would kind of question his consistency there. And this is just me having limited film on him, but I'm also wondering if the 3 interceptions were due to the ball not being thrown in his side very much, which is a good thing, you know. So we'll see. Again, I think he's going to bring good competition to training camp, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. So for the 7th and final pick in round 6, it was pick number 230. The Raiders went with Jimmy Morrissey. He's a center out of Pittsburgh. So Morrissey is 6'2", 305 pounds. I also wanted to know he's a Burlsworth Trophy winner. And that's actually the top walk-on in the nation. So this guy walked on to Pittsburgh and grinded right away, and was able to gain the respect of his teammates. They voted him actually team captain his last 2 years. And I think the most impressive stat that went along with that is in the last 2 years, he's actually only given up 2 sacks. So good protector right there of the quarterback. Definitely needs some more protection there on the O-line now, with a couple of the transitions made in the offseason. This guy's really versatile. He can play center or guard. Again, he's only given up a couple sacks in the last couple of years, and he has great lateral movement. So he's athletic enough to pull, he can reach, and he gets to linebackers in a hurry. I know his size was kind of questioned at 6'2", 305 pounds, but if this guy can get good positioning and allow his athletic ability to carry him through, I think we might be onto something here. So we'll see. I mean, this guy's being described as a grinder. You know what I mean? Just one of those smash mouth guys that Gruden always seems to love, that he always seems to want to go after. So this guy right here fits that mold, and I'm looking forward to seeing him compete. With that being said, I'd like to see him be a little more explosive. So he's quick enough with his feet. He gets his hips around. He can get there. I would just like to see him deliver a couple of hits. I'd like to see him go after a couple people. Obviously, you can't, over pursue. You don't want to catch him leaning against some of these elite rushers. But I think there's a lot of potential for this kid, and I think that he could help the Raiders build up a solid line. Boom. So there you have it. That was my recap for the Raiders picks. Went through all 7 today. Looking forward to seeing what the undrafted acquisitions are going to bring. See what kind of positions we go after here. I was a little bit thrown off by the first pick, Alex Leatherwood. Again, I hadn't heard of him really before this. I understand it. I understand always getting the protection for the quarterback. Just ask the Bengals. We'll go into that a little later. But yeah, that was really the only one that threw me off. Even these other guys that I hadn't really known much about before, just reading into it, I'm really, really glad we went heavy on the defense. Our offense, obviously, we're restructuring the line right now, but it's been a little bit frustrating because offense actually hasn't been bad. I think Derek Carr has played well. I think Josh Jacobs is the best back in the league. It's a little bit exhausting to see a lead slip away and watch your team lose. So I'm hoping we can put some pressure on the quarterback this year. I'm hoping we can make a couple of stops. And overall, looking forward to this 2021 season. But we got to get through training camp first. So thank you for joining me today. I kind of went on the recap for my quarterbacks on this 2021 draft, my top 6 there, and went over the picks for my team for the Las Vegas Raiders. Next, we got training camp, and hoping there's some good content that comes out of that. But stay tuned. Again, if you have any questions, comments, any stats or interesting facts you want to add in, please throw them down in the comment section below. We will try to get to as many as we can. And as always, for notifications and whatnot, go ahead and click that subscribe button and give us a follow. And we are always looking for suggestions. So if you have a certain topic, a certain player, or a certain idea you would like us to touch on, please throw it at us. In sports and sports culture, just football alone, there's a million different topics. So I want to know what you're interested in. Let me know. Until then, thank you for listening to Prime 3 Radio, where we're talking all things sports and sports culture. I am your host, Rob Munez, and I'll check you guys out later.